Hello, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar with SOCi, leveraging your franchise's local presence on social media, the data marketers need to know. My name is Erica. I am the Director of Marketing for the LSA, and I will be your host for today's event. A few housekeeping items before we begin. This webinar is being recorded and will be circulated to all attendees with the presentation within 24 hours of the broadcast. Questions will be answered during the Q&A session at the end. You can, however, ask questions at any time during the broadcast by using the question window in your control panel. Our speakers today are Olivia Starr. Olivia is a senior marketing professional with the innate ability to truly maximize the ROI of a company's marketing efforts. Olivia has experience applying the strategic marketing vision for how a company needs to communicate its brand, both written and visually. As the Senior Content Marketing Manager for SOCi, Olivia has developed and grown the department to help position SOCi as a leader in social media and reputation management for multi-location businesses, while also furthering the category and conversations surrounding localized social marketing. Jacob Chappell. Jacob is a modern digital marketing professional with an understanding of social media and the marketing industry as a whole. Recognized by experts and armed with acclaimed accomplishments, Jacob's desire to strategize and attain business goals across the board is matched only by his exclusive mix of executive insights and marketing solutions with a strong focus on ROI. As a Senior Vice President of Sales with 10+ years experience with emerging software technologies, Jacob has been on the front lines of strategies pertaining to brand management, corporate sponsorships, and business development at SOCi Inc. Without further ado, I will hand things over to Olivia to get started.
Thanks, Erica. As she mentioned, I'm the Senior Content Marketing Manager here at SOCi, and today I just wanted to run you through the agenda that we'll be covering throughout the entire webinar. So we're going to start with the power of the concept of localized social marketing, what it means, how you incorporate it into your business, and then after that, we'll go through the common management models that a multi-location business can incorporate to really maximize an LSM strategy. Then we'll discuss where you should be establishing localized social marketing. Then we'll be following the steps to success, what that looks like for an LSM strategy, and then finally some pitfalls that you should avoid when you're incorporating this strategy into your business. First up, the power of localized social marketing. So marketers and businesses alike, they know that social is big, but I just wanted to present some facts that really support this notion. Everyone knows, social is where it's at, but on average, there's a daily time spent using social media that is an average of 2 hours and 6 minutes. So that's a huge amount of time that users are on social platforms every single day. What does that equate to in terms of user base? It's approximately 2.5 billion users that are on social media worldwide, and that is from 2010 to 2018, and that's in billions. So that's a huge base that you can potentially pull from. And then finally, what percentage of users are there in the United States? About 81% of the US population who currently use any sort of social media from 2008 to 2017. So really, regardless of industry, social media is a key strategy for multi-location businesses. So what is the concept of localized social marketing? You'll be hearing this term throughout the webinar, and short for the LSM, what is the definition of that? So essentially, it's the marketing efforts that focus on building a local presence for a business, leveraging locally driven communication channels to reach the specific local communities it serves, rather than a broad national approach. So basically what this means is that as a multi-location business, you not only have a corporate entity, but you also have each individual local business as well. So it's taking not only this corporate brand messaging and visuals, but you're also taking that and localizing it. So you're putting some sort of local spin to reach and engage and truly just communicate the way that you should be communicating with each individual local audience. And the channels that this drives through is social media marketing, review sites, social advertising, and other two-way engagement channels. So the concept of localized social marketing is definitely an emerging trend, but it is, in fact, the biggest untapped opportunity for franchise marketers. So why is LSM so important? When done effectively, LSM can propel brands to the top of organic search results, build and maintain a highly engaged base of loyal consumers, and drive increased traffic and sales to local businesses. And we've also, you want proof? We've included quite a few stats and facts to really back up this notion of LSM. So 91% of consumers start a local search first when looking for a business. So before they look at any other source, they're going to Google, they're typing in businesses near me, a particular industry, whatever it is. 91% of people are doing that first before they conduct any other research for their buying behaviors. And today, 6 out of 10 mobile local searches are now zero-click, meaning that consumers find what they need within the local search results and do not click to other sites and resources. So Google, and we'll talk through this whenever we cover the platforms that you should be really leveraging for your LSM presence, but Google My Business has a lot of different offerings that they're truly trying to capture the attention of every single mobile and local user. So they don't have to click off of Google. That's the goal, is that they're essentially a microsite for each local business. So they're capturing all of the attention, and those users are never even leaving Google. So the importance of having all of your business information, your hours, your store info, website, all of that, it's essential to keep those Google My Business profiles up to date. Google My Business pages are the biggest winners of these zero-click searches. So as I mentioned, Google really kind of the go-to source. Ratings and reviews are not only the primary factor consumers use in deciding which company to do business with, but now it's also a top 3 search ranking factor. So essentially, what does this mean? They're really influencing consumer behaviors, but also Google is incentivizing these businesses to have a larger base of reviews, and where that's impacting is through your local search results. So the importance of reviews really spans throughout all different components of your business. And here you can see some examples of profiles that are offered through Google My Business. Awesome. So we have some additional facts for why LSM is so important. So we've talked about Google, we're going to move on to Facebook. So Facebook is actually number 2, so following immediately behind Google for the top search engine based on total search volume. So while everyone is going to Google to do local searches, really they're also visiting Facebook. This is where they're already spending their time online. So capitalizing on these existing consumer behaviors is really key to reaching and engaging with local audiences. And that's leading to 2 in 3 Facebook users visit the page of a local business at least once a week. So they're not only visiting Facebook to browse whatever digital habits that they already have, but they're also checking out these local businesses. So building out your profile through Facebook, because there's the capacity to have both the corporate and a local page on Facebook, and we'll cover that a little bit later on in the webinar. But 2 out of 3 Facebook users are visiting those local pages once a week, which is just huge. It's huge potential to reach these local engaged audiences. And then to date, 78% of purchase decisions are now influenced by the social content that is on those local pages. So those stats alone really just speak to the importance of LSM. And then finally, based on a research report that SOCi conducted in conjunction with the Local Search Association, the top 10 brands in localized social marketing are growing 3 times their category peers based on a 5-year trend of each brand's revenue growth rate. So essentially, you're capitalizing on consumer behaviors, you're maximizing your presence on all of these local pages, and that's ultimately resulting in the growth of business and the growth of revenue for multi-location businesses. That's huge. So we've talked about the importance of LSM. What does that mean for a multi-location business or brand, and what are the different components? So we've talked about Google, we've talked about Facebook. The way that we're talking about localized social marketing is it includes 3 critical components. It's broken into 3 different buckets, so presence, care, and growth. So presence is basically ensuring that you have claimed all of your local pages. Are you on brand? Are you being found? So this is kind of the first step to developing a really successful LSM strategy. Second is that concept of care. So this is reviews. Are your customers or prospects talking? And then almost as importantly, are you responding properly? So it's not just about getting this huge volume and base of reviews. There's also the importance of having a proactive review response as well. And then finally, so you have this engaged audience, they know where to find you on digitally, they are talking to you through your care channels. Now, how do you grow in your audience? And that's through a paid approach. So are you reaching new audiences? Are you driving results? And we'll talk about each one of these in more detail a little bit later. So we're breaking the facts down by each bucket of the LSM as well. So presence. As we keep talking about, there's the potential on Facebook to have both a corporate and a local brand page. And 85% of the brand engagement is happening at the local page level. So that's huge. Basically, that's saying that the majority of engagement that is happening throughout Facebook is on these local pages as opposed to an overall entity. And in order to enhance your presence, what should you do? You should claim all local pages to regain control of your brand presence. If you do not claim a page as a multi-location business and someone were to go in and tag your business, whether they're leaving a recommendation or they're trying to create a post and they're tagging your business, if you don't already have this page established under your umbrella, that user will automatically be the manager of that local page, meaning that you can have rogue content. You're not controlling the narrative surrounding your brand. So it's essential to claim all of your local pages through Facebook. And then once you take that a step further, creating libraries of brand approved content to share with the franchisees. So we keep talking about this concept of brand and local. There's the importance of having both a brand presence, to have that brand authenticity, to have, you know, the common voice kind of throughout all of your franchisees. So at the corporate level, it's important to create a brand approved content to share with the franchisees, but then also that leads into empowering both corporate and franchisees to schedule and publish either corporate or localized content to all of the local pages. Okay, so for care, 70% of consumers use social media to air and resolve grievances. So if you have a consumer, they're unhappy or happy with their experience, one of the first things that they do is they go online and they leave your business a review. So it's just really key as a part of your overall LSM strategy to understand the importance of reviews. As you can see here, this person doesn't recommend the business. And then once we have a presence and then we're also developing this care, what does that mean? So you're surfacing the conversations that matter most and you're receiving that constructive feedback. So whether it's positive or a negative sentiment that's surrounding your brand, you're understanding that if you see any sort of common trends or any sort of common themes kind of throughout the reviews, you're surfacing those conversations, you're making proactive changes to your business, and you're making your consumers feel heard. As a part of that as well, whenever people are leaving reviews, as I keep mentioning, the importance of not only having this large volume and base of reviews, but responding is almost as important. So you should ensure responses to comments and reviews are handled in a timely manner and with on-brand language. So there is a little bit of a differentiation between what consumers expect in terms of review response and what businesses think is acceptable. So on average, a consumer expects a business to respond within 24 hours to a review or a comment. And then in actuality, what businesses are actually producing is closer to a 5 to 6 day response time. So there's really that huge variation between consumer expectations and what businesses are actually delivering. So you can improve that, and you can respond to reviews within a timely manner, and then also just ensuring that the response is brand appropriate. That's key throughout the LSM strategy. And then also setting up workflows, so conversations and reviews go through an approval hierarchy. So whether this is the corporate approves everything, the franchisees are scheduling it, it's essential to have an approval workflow. So even if you're the most professional writer that there ever is, you will have mistakes. So it's always essential to not only have a second set of eyes, but also just to ensure that the language is appropriate, the way that you're responding is brand appropriate. So it's really important to have an approval workflow. Okay, so in terms of growth, so you have your local pages, you're engaging with your consumers. How are you growing your audience? Social media is second only to referrals as a customer acquisition source. So behind people just hearing referrals from other people, social is the second place that they go in order to receive recommendations. So how are you growing your audience? You should be extending the reach of your highest performing content with Facebook boosting. And we'll get into this a little later, but Facebook boosting is basically taking existing content that's already performing really well, organic content, and you're putting money behind it to boost and extend the reach. So currently Facebook really limits the organic reach of businesses' content. So you're reaching a very small percentage of not only your target base of consumers, but just your followers as well. So utilizing and supplementing boosting dollars to really restore organic reach is key. And then also you should be increasing your base of ratings and reviews across your locations, because this ultimately will increase your overall reach of your reviews. And then finally, you should be reaching new audiences where they're already spending time online, which is through social, and engaging with targeted Facebook ad placements. So there's really 3 key components of an overall growth strategy under the umbrella of localized social marketing. So now that we understand what localized social marketing is for multi-location businesses, what are some different ways that you can manage this strategy for a multi-location business? The first approach that we'll talk about is centralized. So this is a centralized management model. This is basically just the corporate office manages every aspect of a company's online presence. So presence, care, and growth all managed through corporate. What are some pros of this approach? So brand consistency, there are no franchisees that are posting content, responding to reviews, creating localized social ads. So really the brand is consistent throughout not only the corporate page, but all the local pages as well. Additionally, reporting is centralized, so it's really easy for corporate to pull reports, understand what's working, understand what's not, because everything is coming from the single corporate entity. Also, it simplifies the workflow. So since one office is producing all of the content, responding to reviews, there's really not that structured workflow that you have to think about from a corporate to a franchisee level. And what are some cons? So obviously, it's hard to create a robust local presence. Scaling a localized approach to social marketing is really difficult whenever one entity is managing everything. So they understand the corporate brand, everything is brand consistent, but the localized spin is missing because you're not speaking to those local audiences through your corporate content. So it's really difficult and to scale a corporate entity creating this robust localized presence. It also truly limits the franchisee voice and control of their business. So since corporate is taking care of everything, they don't really feel empowered, or even they just don't feel like a part of the social component of their business, which can be difficult. And then also, as I mentioned, corporate can't understand the demographics of each individual franchise location. So this essentially what this is saying is that, yeah, corporate understands the brand, but really the audience is different for each individual location. So some message that works in West Virginia will not necessarily work in New York City. So it's truly, you need to empower the franchisees that understand their local audience and create custom localized content that is tailored to those individual audiences. Next, we have a decentralized management model. And throughout these models, we'll be covering the pros and cons of each. So what is the centralized? Everything is managed at corporate. The concept is decentralized. It's the complete opposite. So the bulk of social marketing management is left in the hands of the local owners with minimal corporate oversight. So what are some pros? And again, this is a complete flip of the centralized. So through this decentralized management model, the franchisees are able to connect with the customers on a more personalized level. Since all of the communications are coming from the franchisees, they understand the local audience, so they're communicating in the way that they know how to communicate. It's super easy for franchisors because they're not managing any of it, and then also the local franchise owners because they have full control and power over their localized social presence. And then also, if you empower this approach, you're tapping into the growing consumer trend to shop local. So when you're a franchise or a multi-location business, you might be missing this, but if you empower your franchisees to be creating this localized content through social, through your review platforms, then you're tapping into that movement while still being a multi-location business. So there are also some cons to this approach as well. The possibility of rogue content. So what does that mean? Essentially, row content can be anything from a brand inappropriate message to maybe an image that is not necessarily, not even brand appropriate, but appropriate in general. So part of this approach of decentralized really is kind of increasing the likelihood that a franchisee will be posting something that is not on brand or potentially even appropriate. It's also extremely difficult to gather reporting data. Since franchisees are all posting at their own rate, they're responding at their own rate to comments and reviews, and they may even potentially be utilizing different formats to share that content. It's really difficult to gather an overall report across the business. And then also you'll see brand inconsistencies from location to location. This can include the amount of posting, the type of posting, the quality of the posting. So really it's inconsistent throughout. And finally, the hybrid management model. This is really tapping into the expertise of both the franchisor and the franchisee, and they're empowered to work together to create the most effective online presence possible on both the national and the local levels. So this really solves the cons of both the centralized and the decentralized. This particular management model does have cons of its own because the way in which you really exhaust this type of management model requires a particular tool. So what are some pros? The responsibility, expertise, and resources are all shared. So corporate may have the financial resources, franchisees have the local knowledge. So really it's utilizing both of their expertise and putting it together to create a really strong localized social approach. Content is both localized and consistent. So while you're empowering the franchisees to post localized content, the brand is also able to post brand-approved corporate content as well. So weaving through the strategy can be the brand. And then also there's corporate oversight, so you're able to see and maintain the brand voice, approve comments, whatever it is, but then you also have the local input. So while this sounds like a great approach, and it is, there are some cons as well. So really the problem is that it requires a robust localized social media management tool in order to implement. So when you think about workflow approval and you think about the ability to share branded content libraries, it's really difficult to maintain this approach without an overall tool. Awesome. And then at this point, I will turn it over to Jacob.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much, Olivia. I think you've covered a lot. For those that are entering into kind of the world of localized social marketing, I think what I want to be able to accomplish here is to really share from experience of working with lots of brands. And as we've seen the model definitely adapt, where I would say historically it started with a more of a centralized model. I think the industry has started to really explore a decentralized model, but the overall kind of, I would say the trend has been some level of a hybrid model where there's elements of parts of your business, from the social strategy to reputation strategy, ad strategy, that you can bring at the local level to really drive the success and establish the metrics there. So what we'll do is, as we make that shift and kind of have built out the framework, I wanted to dive a little bit further into the actual networks and where you should focus some of your attention. So getting started here, what we did was pulled some data and looking particularly around, and this is data that we've actually pulled from our own platform, and seeing where people are engaging, where people are putting some time and attention. As you can see here, the primary social networks for a multi-location business, it still remains paramount that Facebook is #1. We've seen this consistently, as well as we've seen a really big focus and impact around Google. I'll talk a little bit later around some of the updates Google has implemented into their strategy, where they're driving so much conversation and being so involved with so many different aspects of a business listing, down to kind of the SEO capacity, all the way to the social platform they've built and kind of expanded upon. With that being said, there's some of the secondary type of networks. So you can see Yelp still up there, Twitter, Instagram. So the primary social media networks I still look at from a business perspective really is kind of that Facebook, Google, and Instagram as far as kind of the day-to-day content strategy and syndication. But just to give you a perspective of where people put some time and focus, we still see that Facebook, Google, and Yelp are still in the top 3. So I want to talk through some of these, key networks. So as we've seen, Facebook clearly, is the Goliath out there with so many different people on there on a daily basis. So they've, continued to grow into the billions, and we've seen such success there, primarily around how deep their platform is fully integrated into a personal use on a daily basis. They're so deeply connected, and I think from a business perspective, having all of that data and all that insight and the ability to truly hyper target into your ideal customer profile, for business acquisition, there's just things that you can do there in Facebook that are so far advanced than other systems out there. But the other piece is just the overall amount of time that's being spent in that network. I definitely feel that when you're developing your local strategy, you should definitely have a Facebook forward strategy while still entertaining these other networks. But if you don't have anything in place or starting to dabble into creating local presence, start with Facebook, and then the other ones can follow suit. Google My Business has definitely morphed. So as of March of early 2019, Google had made the decision to swiftly sunset their existing social network called Google+. So for those of you that may have sent me a Google, Circle request under Google+, and I didn't accept it, I apologize. I wasn't a big user there, and neither were there a lot of other people. So essentially, Google My Business have been able to take all of the valuable resource that they have and the users that are in there on a daily basis and really put some new features around what we call Google Post. And this is an area now for marketers to go in and using that real estate to create social content that can live in your actual listing page for up to 7 days. In addition to that, really trying to drive that level of validation and overall kind of unanimous support from the community and from actual users while tracking that data. They've seen that being able to create truly an open platform for them in kind of like an opportunity for a customer to engage with a business and let other people see those questions and answers and keep that available so people can find that historically. I, at the personal level, use this all the time, and usually I can get my FAQs answered if I can't find it elsewhere. So in this instance here, Google My Business has really dappled into this piece. And for a lot of our local social marketers out there today, when they think about scale and when they think about how am I going to do this across hundreds or thousands of networks, this is really where they have to start figuring out what are the types of workflows in place, what are the technology that are going to make me successful. So beyond that, the search engine offers the ability for marketers to go out and create the overall presence for them to engage with, but also the ability to go through and have them on a day-to-day basis to go out and be able to interact with these customers. Twitter is something that I think is very valuable. We've seen that over the past few years, it's kind of had these ebbs and flows of usership. And we've seen that, and most recently in the past couple of years, this has definitely picked up some steam. Twitter's put a big investment into their advertising strategy. We'll see how that plays out. But depending on the vertical and depending on the market that you're selling into or working on a daily basis, this may be a really important platform, and for some it may not. But just keep in mind that there's still some level, even from a corporate presence, having some insight there and being able to listen into those conversations. Lastly, part of the Facebook ecosystem is Instagram. And this is an opportunity, just taking and piggybacking off the power of Facebook, Instagram with over 1 billion people in there. We've noticed that Facebook and Instagram, as they've collaborated and being able to, join forces and be one over the past, 8+ years, the idea has really been able to build Instagram in a way that they can work with businesses, and they are starting to tailor their systems to also support multi-location businesses. And so through APIs and updates and through strategic partnerships like SOCi as well, there are opportunities again to scale your Instagram efforts. While it's a very different network because it's extremely visual, now it's highlighted through stories and video content. This is a new shift into the content strategy, but more importantly, there are new ways. And I would feel that, if you don't have that in your horizon, definitely put Instagram there. Talking about the local business sites, and as we listen and talk about the social media sites where people are putting some time and attention, if we want to talk, primarily around the customer care aspect and looking at the social conversation and the star rating sites, we still see the top 3 and powerful networks are your Google My Business, Facebook, and Yelp. And so this is an area where, again, Google My Business has picked up steam along the way. They've been growing quarter over quarter, and really, I'd say Google has made a pretty strong effort in a way to drive this conversation. They want to ensure that all the information that you need for a business and everything that you're doing, that can be one central source, and they've been able to pick up some steam while they put attention and focus in driving more and more reviews and facilitating the conversation in an easy manner and creating those conversions. And you may ask why? Well, everyone wants your marketing dollars. And while Facebook and Google compete directly, they want you to put more money there, on your pay-per-click, as well as Facebook wants you to put more money there. So there's going to be a constant battle, but we noticed that Google My Business, Facebook, and Yelp are still the top 3. So if you're limited in bandwidth or you're starting your journey in local socialized marketing and creating that individual audience and locations, definitely start there. You're going to have some more secondary sites, and where this will fully be dictated by the vertical and focus of your business. So if you're more in the restaurant business or you're in hospitality, you may have some additional sites that are very focused there. So TripAdvisor is something that comes up quite a bit. If you don't have any presence there, we've typically seen that more from the international type of business that come through, or people that stay even in hospitality, how important TripAdvisor is in their business. So if that's not part of your radar, absolutely, you want to be cognizant where that's happening, or, even looking at it from a restaurant perspective, open table, et cetera, those could be very tailored into your business. So spend some time to go out and ensure that you're listening to all those channels and have systems in place for your teams so that you can easily aggregate all that data, compile it, and be able to respond and handle those reviews. I kind of talked through a little bit around Google My Business, but more importantly, I want to talk about the connection where Google My Business is not just a listing site or a review site. It really integrates into everything that you're doing. So the way that you're being found in one of the most powerful search engines out there in the world, it really goes back to the consumer and business engagement level. So this impacts how you're displayed within Google search, but also, again, how you're found in maps and other search criteria. So if you don't make this a priority, you could potentially lose a lot of, what we consider kind of scoring points or brownie points within the algorithm and how you're found and ranked. So again, making that a high priority. This has also been followed suit by multiple networks. And so highlighting the top 3, Facebook again has built out their algorithm, and they've said time and time again, hey, we want to make this just like Google is. We want to make this a very customer centric, and we want to give to the audience what they want. People want to engage at a local level. Therefore, let's develop the tools built into those local level pages to display what is the conversation time if I send you a message for how long that business is, to take to respond to me. These are some things that are really important. Also, if you're not responding into those reviews as well, not just the reviews put into the social conversation, this is impacting your score. Same thing on Yelp. Again, we know that people are using Yelp to make decisions by vertical. This is something that could really impact your bottom line. So as you're evaluating these sites, make sure you put some priority, at least in these top 3. I call these kind of the general business review sites that are in pretty much any vertical. And then there's some more secondary ones or more specialized ones, depending on what you're selling and what you're doing in your vertical. So going through here and just talking about more of these, essential steps, to succeed. I want to talk about what this would look like for your business, as far as what are, I put together 5 really important topics here that can help, deliver to you the goals that you're hoping to accomplish. So actually, there we go, perfect. So the first things first is, as you're building out the criteria, when you build out a local social strategy, I think a lot of people try to kind of bucket and figure out, what do I do and how do I measure, or what are some of the most important types of metrics or KPIs that I can establish early on to see if this is successful. And I always think about it, dating back, I heard a quote once that you can really never measure success unless you've actually set the appropriate goals so that you can benchmark to that. And so when I think about that, there are some general and fundamental things that you can look at a high level, but into your business, and as you really dissect it, you guys may find additional ones. But these are some baseline ones. If you don't have this into your strategy, please take note. So for example, looking at the local participation and adoption rate, right? The overall reach, the brand sentiment, the response time of people interacting with you, right? So when they're reaching out to you and you're responding, the overall brand engagement, and lastly, the brand presence and consistency market to market, or when you have the lens of corporate to local, is there a disconnect? Is corporate saying and doing one thing while local is doing the other? Are there conflicting messages? Is there brand negative content at the local page that corporate doesn't even know about? All of those things are really challenging. So again, these are at the baseline. These are things that really take into consideration. When it comes to brand engagement, I do want to share, we've noticed lots of shifts in the marketplace. And I get questions all the time in the conversations that I'm having, especially when there's been hints to, and even in some test scenarios where Instagram and Facebook has shared that they may discontinue the whole liking component of content. And I think about, that's kind of the lazy level of engagement, or a lazy metric that we're even looking at. If we can shift to really what the algorithm is dictating, meaning that they want us to be able to drive an active conversation versus the passive conversation. What is active? That's someone going in, typing out comments, sharing content, reposting, mentioning. These are all active measures versus just going ahead and hit like. So again, as you are kind of tweaking this and looking at the criteria for this year, next year, keep in mind that piece is so crucial into being success, and that's network by network. It could be very different, so you need to optimize that, working with your experts in that field and partners that can help you along the way, that are connected and have API partnerships that can support you with all these changes that are going to take place in the marketplace. Number 2, building and maintaining a social presence. So step 1 is really identifying where you want to be. Step 2, I really think, is looking at your bandwidth and resource. Now, you may make a list, and initially it may have 10 networks. In all reality, that may not even be viable, or may not even be necessary for business. So start with the most important ones. We've highlighted those today. So I think from that step, then it moves into more of this audit phase. Let's make sure, and I know Olivia mentioned a little bit about this, claim the local pages. Let's make sure we're managing those unofficial or unclaimed pages, which also can yield us rogue content where someone can tag us. Let's make sure we have the appropriate security settings in place. And interesting enough, as you can see multiple social network logos here, every single one of those networks have their own formatting and setting structure and security policies in place. So these are things that, as you build out your strategy, make sure that you're up to date, up to speed, and working with the certified partners that are going to allow you to navigate within their system, but also having the guidance on what you need to be focusing on with all of these massive updates that take place on a weekly or monthly basis. The next piece here is, when you're thinking about this localized content distribution, if you have ways to facilitate it from corporate or working through your agency where you have an amazing amount of content and brand approved assets, you got to figure out a way to get that to your local level. And then from there, where you're building that social presence and focusing at the local level, how do you drive engagement? And this is when I think about what does that mean? And when we start dissecting the data, and when we can start looking at if you use the word could versus would or should, and the impact of what you get. So you have a higher yield of a comment when you're directing a question using, should, right? And so these are types of things that you can analyze, and having the analytics that you're pulling from the platform, like in our system, this is something that's very valuable for customers, and I have this conversation on a daily basis. So in addition to that piece, right, is creating that level of consistency. If I am someone that is following your brand, I don't want to hear from you, every 10 minutes. That's kind of the pestering person, which no one likes. What I do want is have some level of consistency. I don't want to see a post today and then 3 months from now see another post. You're going to lose me as a follower. I'm going to be really disengaged, and I'm not going to be able to become one of your top fans because I can't join in as much of an advocate as I am to your brand or mission statement as a business, and that's why I'm following. I'm not going to be able to communicate, and I don't have the platform to do so because you're not there. And lastly, being seen and heard, I think is so important initially. Also, it dates back to kind of this concept of when you're creating content, if you keep with one simple tip that I can leave you guys, when you create the content, don't just create content to create content. In this instance, in the arena today, quality will trump quantity. And then number two, when you're creating the content, make sure that you have a goal, an objective behind everything that you're doing. And this instance means when I'm creating this content, the use case and purpose is to do X, Y, and Z. So when you're going out and working with your creative teams or agencies or in-house, don't just say, oh, I'm going to create additional footage here or some pictures here, and I'm going to use that reel for social media. Have actual qualified objectives, collaborate with those teams, and then from there you can roll that out across the organizations. You will see much better results that way when it's much more organized and goals are set forth. The next piece is, as you're pushing content out, just think, as a business, we got to be having our ears to the ground and pull content back in. And this is where we have to manage the customer experience. And so for any of you that shop on a regular basis, or any of you that go out to eat on a regular basis, we're constantly in what we do in a day-to-day interactions, or if you're ever at a retail store, ever in a restaurant, even pumping gas or wherever that may be, you're interacting with customer service individuals, someone that's supporting you. And the same thing goes as brands. As we're out there and have that local social presence, we want to ensure that we are driving the conversations and managing those expectations. So some things to keep in mind is, don't just go out and say, okay, we're going to check this off the list. We're going to create some just automation, and every single response is going to be, thank you for sharing your message. That's not organic. That by no means is a way a person's going to feel really heard. Ensure that the responses are tailored and customized to specifically on brand into your messaging, also to the topic that's related to. The idea is we want to be able to have those conversations immediately, and ultimately every single review site can drive adoption. And we want to be able to make sure that every single location out there has reviews across those key networks that are going to help your presence. People are going to find you, people are going to connect with you, and that's going to drive more and more business. So as we look at this, and really when we're conceptualizing this idea of pushing content out, pulling content in, we also want ways to go out and promote to more people. And this is an opportunity to leverage tools like Facebook boosting, or creating ads within, again, looking at this primarily from a social lens and looking at this from Facebook, there are really amazing ad types that are out there. So if you've not dappled with that, this is something that can be a really great learning experience for your guys' team, and collaborating and working with the right partners that can assist with this effort. But when you're thinking about scale, make sure you have the technology in place that allows you to accomplish hundreds or thousands of personalized and customized ads that are dynamically built with the click of a button. That is the power of scale, and that is how you're going to leverage growth and drive more adoption overall. And I shared before, as far as setting a goal to really measure success, when we look at this, it's clearly, visible that as you create these level of KPIs and seeing how we're performing and how it's tracking, these are things that you want to really, from a top-down approach, get the buy-in from the executive team to understand that reputation impacts your business. Social media presence impacts your reputation, and all of these work hand in hand. They're not, again, mutually exclusive. You need to have a social strategy in place to drive your online brand reputation, vice versa. So creating those level of metrics, ensuring that you're doing everything in a timely manner, and creating those things in a way that when you're decentralizing this or creating a hybrid structure, have ways and tools and dashboards and analytics to easily go in and to see what's working, what's not working, who's doing a great job and who's not. So with that being said, as we work with hundreds and hundreds of brands on a daily basis, I wanted to put together a couple pitfalls and areas where, while we may go and attempt to do this, and I'll quickly run through these as we're limited on time today, let me walk you through a couple of these. So the first things first, we see this on a daily basis. The challenge for people is they just don't get it. When they think local social media, it's overwhelming, right? They come in and they think it's such a daunting task. Heck yeah, it is. You need to have the right technology in place to make this a lot more streamlined and work with the right partners that can help you. So they don't go out and do an official audit. They don't go in and manage and control those pages. They kind of start with what they have, or they keep coming back to this idea of, I don't know where to begin, so I'm not going to do it. They just kind of push it under the rug. Attack it. If you don't know how to do it, there's lots of resources out there. Find the right partner, and frankly, this is step one, and you've got to do it right, because this is kind of the foundation of the house you're building. If this is weak, if this is unstable, if this is uncertain, eventually the house is going to collapse. Things are going to fall through the crack. You're not going to hear or listen to those pages, and ultimately the strategy you're trying to implement is not going to work. Number two, don't think that by any means you can go in and set and forget your local pages. If it was that easy, everyone would be doing this. So frankly, I would take this as a great example. Imagine your local social page is like a puppy. You go out and the puppy is so dang cute, you create the local page, it's awesome. But guess what? As that page grows, as your puppy gets bigger, what happens is it eats more, it wants more attention, and ultimately you're going to get bigger poops. And that's what's going to happen here. You have to go out and make sure that you are looking at all of the different aspects of your business and ensuring that you can't just set it and forget it. You have to have a plan in place, and there needs to be some levels of consistency and branding consistency across all the pages and all the listing management and data management of all of those pages, and ensure that from a business perspective, if I'm a customer and I land through social because that's my preference versus looking through a search engine, that I can get all of the available and important information that I need as a customer to transact and do business with you. The next piece is, if you think about it, if you build it, they will come. One of the best movies out there, in Field of Dreams, right? I always think about that when I listen to that line. And so in the reality of how things work today, organic content is not so easily distributed as much as we wish. It requires some sophistication of creating really qualified content that drives that level of engagement, but ultimately it's powered by this kind of local social advertising strategy. So again, paid for results is something that's really expected into this, but make sure you don't just go out and throw money away. Create qualified objectives, have ways to track and measure, and ensure that you can kind of repeat and and rinse that cycle over and over, so that you can keep optimize it further and further to drive better and better results. All right, so we got two more. So this is something I mentioned before, and I'll quickly say, don't just kind of push everything under the rug. Respond in real time. I can share a quick fact. 33% of negative reviews that are responded to within the hour can turn to a positive review. What I just gave you guys is gold. You can really take these lemons and turn them in lemonade, but it's determined based upon your inability, really your ability to act in a timely manner and have the process in place, especially where you have kind of this PR hat that everyone wears in marketing, no matter which department you're in. You have to figure out a way to listen in on those conversations. So people are going to be talking at you, people are going to be talking with you, but the worst is when people are talking without you. So let's ensure that we don't just kind of push that under the rug. Let's be ensure that we're in those conversations and ultimately responding to those in real time. Awesome. Lastly, overcomplicating workflow. This is something that when I look at the challenges, and as we highlighted here, is really the number 5 pitfall for many organizations, is that they go to and approach a local social strategy, but not all of the foundation was in the right place. So again, to create a very well executed plan, it's something that has to really be vetted out. So the first thing is create your overall plan as an organization, create that macro level, and then create the micro level, and then create the policies and protocols and how to accomplish that, and then align that with the technology and systems and automation in place to allow you to deliver that level of cadence and streamlined process. Without that, I will tell you, yes, that's very complicated. But again, you don't want to overcomplicate it. You can remove and customize features and specific settings on individual users that don't need those things. Let's keep it as simple as 1, 2, and 3. So with that being said, there's lots of really great examples of companies doing it right. I try to share a couple of examples where companies are not doing it right and what they've learned from, so hopefully that's helped out.
All right, thanks so much, Jacob. I know we have a couple of minutes left, so I just wanted to give everyone an opportunity to get their questions answered. I think we have time for about 2 or 3, so let's get started. All right, number 1, what types of social content work well as part of a localized social marketing strategy?
I can take that one, Jacob, if that's okay. So there are a variety of different types of posts that really perform well from an LSM approach, and they can include a bunch of different things. So anything that's entertaining really captures not only your local audience, but just general audience as well. If you want to post something inspiring, these are just more like general topics that work kind of across the board. Entertaining and inspiring posts truly just elicit more engagement than other types of posts. Also, if you're teaching them something, if you're teaching your audience something through your localized content and it's educational, those are great how-tos or guides or whatever it is. Educational content performs really well as well too. And then also storytelling. So utilizing your local employees, your local consumers, your happy customers, whatever it is, telling a story about your business or your brand really just tugs at the heartstrings of your audience, and that will elicit engagement as well. And then anytime at a local business, if you have a discount or a sale, that's pretty self-explanatory, but that really just, those different types of posts elicit engagement from an LSM approach.
Awesome, thanks for that, Olivia. All right, let's see. How do you increase your base of reviews?
I can take that. So the number one is, I would say the number one way to answer this would be, let's focus on customer service. And interesting enough, while you're in social media marketing, you also need to become an expert in social media and customer experience. So if we can, treat every customer at this base level that they're going to give us a 1-star, and by the time they're leaving our restaurant or leaving our shop or leaving our, dry cleaners or whatever business that you're in, if we can get them to that 5-star review, that's going to be a great organic way to drive that. The second piece is if you're not asking, and there's a really great way you can create hard collateral, you can put stickers in your locations, you can print them in the receipts, you can create texting technology that allows you to text that out, you can do email solicitation. There's lots of ways for people to share their feedback. If you don't ask for it, you're probably not going to get it. But if you are a very customer-centric type organization, you want to make sure that you make that at the forefront to drive more reviews across the networks. But please, one little caveat there, whether it's Yelp, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Google, every single one of those have specifics, do's and don'ts. So if you go against their policy and in violation, they could, number one, remove the review, and number two, you can actually, your page can get shut down or temporarily suspended. So part of what I discussed earlier, review the protocol, review those individual policies by network, and ensure that your strategy aligns specifically with what you can and can't do.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Jacob. Let's see here. One more. How should you combine corporate and localized content into your posting strategy?
I can take that one, and then if you wanna, you can definitely further elaborate, Jacob, but corporate branded imagery and messaging should really be kind of peppered into an overall localized approach. So whether it's a corporate video or a branded image that corporate is designing and the messaging is really aligned with your corporate brand, that should really be kind of sprinkled into an overall localized approach. So there's not really a super official formula for that, but just having the localized approach, but then also peppering in your corporate content so people know that it's a part of an overall franchise brand beyond just a profile image and a header image. That's really where you'll find the nice balance. But you have to truly balance the two to satisfy the corporate brand while also speaking to your localized audiences through that localized content.
Yeah, and just to echo that piece, I think about when you look from a corporate strategy and the implication of how you can bring that in locally, think about it as corporate is supporting kind of in a hybrid or decentralized model, you can definitely still create some level of a backbone social content strategy for your location to ensure that there's a proper cadence of content that goes out. And so maybe that is your how-to posts. Maybe you're a hardware store and you've got hundreds of locations and you want to create these DIY type projects, and that's coming from corporate. But at the local level, right, this is where they can supplement and take that content that's been created or part of their asset management system that it can easily facilitate. So whether there's promotions and events that are going on, corporate definitely can facilitate and deliver you great assets, but locally it can go out and customize it. And in turn, what happens is you're getting a lot of different types of content that's going to get published and peppered throughout different locations and really maximizing the overall local experience because it could tailor to that location. So if the weather is extremely cold in Denver, but really hot in California, let's not have the same post, how to stay warm in the winter. Let's talk and speak to, heck, in the winter in San Diego, it's almost 90 degrees on Christmas Day. So let's speak to our local audience, engage that way, but corporate can help facilitate and tag the content so that you can have access to it on your fingertips.
Thanks, Jacob. And thanks so much, everyone, for your questions. I'm going to go ahead and pass it back over to Erica.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much. Some great questions. For the ones we didn't get to, we can send it back answers directly from SOCi. Just have a few things to mention before we go from the LSA. You will be able to view today's broadcast along with previous webinars at our website at thelsa.org. Just navigate to Insight Webinars to find the recordings. We have a few events coming up. Place Conference 19 in Austin next month brings together the best of the best in location intelligence, audience targeting, and offline attribution for a broader look at the customer experiences, challenges, and cross-channel opportunities facing today's multi-location brands and franchises. So she is going to be a speaker there, and we'll talk about their LSM report that we recently completed with them. Tickets are still available for this two-day event, which is taking place at Facebook's new Austin campus. So if you're interested in seeing that, you get a VIP pass there as well. We also have tickets available now for LSA 2020, which is going to take place in San Antonio. The super early bird closes at the end of this month. So if you are going to get tickets, now's the time to get them because they are $400 off. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please be sure to visit thelsa.org and subscribe for updates to be the first to know about future webinars. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.